mention Mark, I'll be upset real bad. You know why? Me and his brother Larry, we rode bicycles all over the world. All right. That's for sure. But without the spirits of the ancestors being drawn by them drums, we can't get things started. You know what I mean? Before we bring Professor up, I want to share with y'all a particular project and event that he has going on. This is Cultural Heritage African Tours, and it's going to be headed up by our dear brother Professor James Smalls in 2020. He has 3 particular tours that are taking place, one in Egypt and Ghana, and then one in Ghana. The one in Egypt is going to be taking place from July 14th to July 21st. And you have one that is going to be Egypt and Ghana. That's going to be from July 14th to August 2nd. And then you have the Ghana tour, which is taking place July 20th through August 2nd. July 20th through August 2nd. So that's 3 particular different trips. You know, now if you got it like that, you can go on all 3 right now. Yeah. And they know what's up to do. But it's something that you want to put in your budget because, like the Muslim pilgrimage to Mecca, we need the pilgrimage back to home. You know, a lot of us are not really clear on what's going on there now or what's went on there then. And in order to really reestablish that bond like we did with libation, you want to do it on a physical level, where that you actually take yourself back and begin to interact with the indigenous population so that you can reestablish those bonds and relationships. And it's events like this. You'll see the flyers, some of them on the table in the back. You can talk to Professor James Smalls after it's finished and make yourself this, you know, if not a one-time in your life experience, and put it in as the, even if you make it a bucket list, whatever you want to do, but make it happen. Get up off your duff, put some ducks together, and take your ass to Africa. Okay. I know Professor Smalls for maybe about 40 years. And my first interaction with him was through Professor Leonard Jeffries and First World Alliance and Sister Keffa and Sister Brother Bill Jones and Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark and that's right, and Professor Simmons, that's my mentor. And what that really meant for me was a spiritual awakening. Because a lot of those individuals really rearranged our whole apple cart when it came down to our understanding about religion and what it meant. And a lot of us, up until that time, had took on a lot of cultural as well as religious characters and personalities that were, if not foreign to us. And what that meant was we had to go through that experience in order to really have some clarity or understanding of what it was about, whether you Muslim, Jew, Christian, or otherwise. But it's a brother like Professor James Smalls who has spent his whole life literally investigating, evaluating, literally interpreting, and defining for us what it means to be spiritual. Now, a lot of us, we take on this persona of, we don't want to be religious, we want to be spiritual. But most of us don't really know what being spiritual is. Have anybody ever looked up the word spirit, the etymology to the word spirit? Where does it come from? What does it actually mean in Western terms, much less what it means in African terms? And when you begin to investigate some of these things, you begin to find out that it ain't what we thought it was. Now I can sit here and begin to dismantle that. That's not my job. We got somebody who is qualified in a way you would never believe. And it's best for somebody who has that experience in order to dissect, dismantle, unpack that whole experience. So, as you can see, our topic for this evening is spirituality as a weapon. Spirituality as a weapon. We put a lot of faith in spirituality, but as a weapon, it's a different way of looking at it. So we're going to turn the mic over to our dear brother, Professor James Smalls.
Yeah.
If he wants to, he will.
But you have a mic built in, or you got a mic you got to put on?
No,
You can
we
put it
just-
down because everybody has it. But if you need the mic for recording, you have to let me know that too. Oh, let me drink the water. See, so I wanted to make a statement this year. When I was younger, I didn't go anywhere without my children. And then it amazed me as through the years, I see us coming out and I see no children. So these are two of my grandchildren, two of my youngest grands. So I wanted them to start rolling with me, like their father and their aunties used to roll with me. Now that project that we are doing, the trips that we're doing, we've been doing that for 40-something years. It's myself and Dr. Leonard Jeffries. And some know that I used to be Muslim. And during that period of time, back in 1974, I went to Mecca before most of us went to Mecca. And then I realized this was not ours. No disrespect to those who still think it's ours. But I have to tell the truth. Now, feelings get a little hurt. That's part of growing. And so when we started the trips to Africa in the 1980s, we've been doing it for 40 years, these tours, we call it the African Pilgrimage Project. Because the idea that I had when I presented it to Dr. Jeffries is like, why can't we have a pilgrimage in the same way that the Muslim world have a pilgrimage?
That's right.
Only thing that makes something sacred is you. Whatever you want to be sacred for you, you have to make that thing sacred. We have this kind of a belief that only other people's things are sacred. And our thing is just kind of something we do. And so we say we've adopted, now they got a new term, they call it the Abrahamic. But unfortunately, we've been forced to adopt these things to survive, and we've used them relatively well. One cannot say the black church was not helpful. It was extraordinarily helpful. One cannot say Islam, especially as presented by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and Malcolm X was not helpful, because it was extraordinarily helpful. But neither is enough. Neither can take us where we have to go. Otherwise, we would have gotten there already. It was never designed to take you anywhere, because it wasn't designed for you. Neither. And so, when I speak, people always hear me say, history erases the mystery. Now, if you don't know history, you really can't talk about being spiritual. Because spirituality is not spookality.
That's right.
And we got kind of caught up in thinking spirituality is spookality. It's got to be something mystical and weird and hard to get to. But spirituality, the simplest way to define it, the word spirit actually comes from, as we know it in the modern context, we say it comes from a word called pneuma, which is the Hebrew word for breath. Right? But that And so, to the African though, before the white man, before the Asian man, because I'm not an Asiatic black man, I'm just a black man, I'm an African black man. Okay? And though we all got kind of brown, we were brown before we left Africa. Don't let people fool you into thinking we had every shade of black before we left that continent. You didn't just get some brown and tan when you came to America. If you don't believe that, go to South Africa and all over Congo, and you see that we had every, and brown ain't nothing but shades of black. We are the melanin people. We decide how to distribute it. You know, that black woman with the mitochondria, she's the only one that can pass that down through time. But spirituality, we've been bamboozled so completely, it's almost laughable when you find out. So I'm going to open up giving you the definition, I'm going to give you the whole speech in the first sentence, and then I'm going to just play with some stuff in time. What the white man calls science is your spirituality. What he calls, that's what Trust is up here talking about. When you observe the stars and the moon and the sun and the movement, that's called science today. Right? Astrology, astronomy. Matter of fact, we created astrology to explain astronomy to the masses. Let me say this so it makes sense, but I want you to understand that spirituality is not spookology. And I don't go into spookology. Spirituality is your being conscious of your reality.
That's right.
We studied the movement of the stars and the movement of the constellation that the stars form, and the movement of the sun and the movement of the moon. And then we studied, okay, when the sun is here and the star is there and the moon is there, what's happening to the earth we live on and what's happening to us, all in that same instance of all those alignments and the millions of alignments that can take place throughout the 365-day period. That's our sacred science. The practice stole our science, gave us religion, and we're now trying to make religion spirituality. I hope you all hear me now. I'm trying to bring you spirituality on the real. If you read the pyramid text, there was one piece that was translated by Obanga and Uncle Ron, Tony Browder, and a couple of others back in the day. It goes like this. Amen, this is Amen speaking. Amen means that which is hidden, that which is not knowable. And it says, I create myself out of myself. I cause existence to exist so that existing might exist. And when I realized that I existed, the female factor was already at my side. She was my truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, reciprocity. And then I called up Shu. You know, y'all think Shu's some God floating around in the sky and killing. Stop thinking like children reading comic books. I called up Shu. I called up the air, the moisture, the things that make moisture. Then I spat out Tepnut. So somebody said, okay, Shu's the husband, Tepnut is the wife. When I spat out Tepnut, I spat out the gases. This is a dissertation in quantum physics that's taken place in this book. And then Shu and Tepnut gave birth to Earth, the minerals, and Nut, all of the planets and other things floating around in this cosmos that we live in, which is made up of the minerals. And then all of that working together gave birth to a Sar and a Set, and Set and Nephthys, the human. And that one little short piece of the book, which is really quantum physics, because he then says, he goes into Ptah, the rising of the god Ptah, which is the primordial hill, the mountain. He's simply referring to liquid matter becoming solid matter. And as he goes on at the end, he says, I created everything that my heart desired, and then I expanded in all of it.
something exists that is not me. There's only one existence. The Ghanaians call it Nyami, Nani-Nyami, none but God. So everything else is simply an expression of an aspect of that existence. White man tried to call that the string theory, the theory of one, but he can't prove it. But we've already proven it culturally. But he does not know how much as he's stolen from us, he has not figured out how to interpret African culture mathematically so that he can express it mathematically, what he's calling his theory of one. But our culture is the theory of one. It's not a theory with us. Our culture is etymology, ecology, and our role in it. It's all the same thing. So what he's calling science is really your sacred science, which I prefer, rather than to call African spirituality, to call it African sacred science. And if you look and go to any African language you want to find, and you will see that the word for people, person, place, or thing, all of it has as a prefix or suffix their name for the divine, which means that they call God is in everything. And everything is in that which they call God. Now the Ewe expressed it as being Sobe Lisa, the totality of creation itself. And Sobe Lisa gets expressed in the Ewe language and the Bon language when it's manifest as human or manifest as nature as Voodoo Daha, the manifestation of the essence of the divine in nature, and Voodoo Gazi, and the manifestation of the when it manifests in the human. They're talking about science, people. All of the books of chemists is about science, medicine, cosmology, ecology. When to plant, what to plant, how to plant, what to plant, where, what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, what, where. That's what we are talking about. That's what those statues are trying to tell you, and the paintings are trying to tell you. But white folks go with their so-called Egyptology and write books that got us in spookality. There's nothing spooky. See the two little boys there? Their mama and daddy made love. No mystery how they got here. So but we want to lie to them and tell them there's a mystery. A sperm and an egg came together. So this one is named King. His father's named Agnatin. So he's King Agnatin after his father. And this one is named Amari. He's the youngest of all the male grandchildren. We got 23 of them. I'm trying to up the ante, get them to make some more babies. They were slow on making babies. But these children is the sum total of their mother and father. That's all they can be. And their mother and father was the sum total of the 4 people that made up their grandparents. And those 4 people were the sum total of the 8, and the sum total of the 16, and the sum total of the 32, and the sum total of the 64, going back infinitely until you get back to that thing that says, I created myself out of myself. And I cause existence to exist, so that existing might exist. We are God having a human experience. And I remember when I used to sit at Trust back at the slave theater, half the Negroes wanted to leave. And God bless his soul, Brother Bill came up to me one time and said, if you sit at any one of the first row, we're not inviting you back anymore. But you are. But you have to know that now. You can't just run up and, oh God, I haven't human experience. You have to know how you are. If something is omnipotent, omnipresent, omnipotent, and supreme, then nothing else can exist but it. Anything else that exists is an expression of an aspect of it. That's so simple. But somebody got us thinking, oh, God's up there, and I'm down here, or God's over here, or God in the ground, or God in the wind. That's kindergarten, comic book stuff that white folks got us thinking. I wear these necklaces, I only wear some necklaces. That's Oya. That's Shango. That's Ogun. And that's, what do you call it? Ishu. Leba. It ain't gonna do nothing to save you. You can go say, give me a beating, blah, blah, and blah. You can do all that you want. Ain't nothing gonna change unless your mind change your mind. Okay? Now what we did that's so amazing in creating these beads of color, we had to find a way to sustain the African wisdom, sacred science system when we weren't allowed to write it, when we weren't allowed to build an institution to contain it, when we weren't allowed to even speak it in our language. We had to come up with a way, how do we maintain the wisdom system? How do we maintain the sacred science? He said we're going to create a color code system based on beads. He will never understand what the hell we do. Matter of fact, he's going to buy the beads for us. He said, the Negroes like beads. So every time he went to market, he brought a little beads back. But we took those beads from Brazil to Puerto Rico to South Carolina. From these people in New Orleans throwing necklaces. This is what they're defamed. This is what they're throwing around those necklaces in New Orleans because they don't want to deal with them as a leques and what they really mean. But we created a code system, color code system, to talk about the universe to ourselves in a way we could retain and maintain through memory, through music, and particularly the drum. We heard this brother drumming, these brothers drumming, and it sounded really good, right? It wakes you up. But what were they saying, really? Every drum rhythm is a conversation, it's a dissertation that is supposed to address your mind. Mostly it's in the language of whatever rhythm that you have. So if I'm speaking Yoruba, and I'm playing a Yoruba rhythm, a Yoruba speaker can understand the drum rhythm in the same way he understands language. Certain drums, now some drums are just for music, some are just for dancing, but there's some drums that they call talking, because they do talk, they speak literally the language. And so, if I was in Afrikan in Ghana, then I would be playing a rhythm that could speak tree. And the people hearing the rhythm hear tree. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? There's a brother who wrote a book on it, named Buddha. He's dead now, he's an ancestor now. And the book is called Dramology. It's in French, but you would still get it. And he gives the history of the drum and the purpose of the drum and why the drum and its relationship with spirit. And then Buddha talked about the drummer is usually in a family of drummers. And the training for the drummers starts when they're these babies' age. Because they're born to be the drummers. They're born in a line of a scientist family where their role in society is to master that drum. So when this little boy is his age, he would be taken to the forest and they would find a baby monkey and he would raise that monkey. Because the skin of that monkey when it becomes an adult is going to be the skin for the drum that he's going to make from the little tree they take him to that he's going to cultivate and watch that tree grow until he gets manhood. Because he can't play his drum as a master until he's 40-something years old. He'll be studying from this age until he's 40-something years old, or he can play in public. He'll be learning from the masters. Each of these rhythms. What are the rhythms? The rhythms is the history and the culture of the people in sound and vibration. Talking about spirituality, I feel so bad. The science of our people is so deep. They will never destroy our culture. You know, they told us, oh, we destroyed your culture. They can never destroy our culture. They don't even know what our culture is. They only have fragments from the periphery. And through tyranny that's made us heightened, such that we have forgotten our own self and we are scared to look into the historical mirror. That's why I said, the history will erase the mystery. Because the history is your mirror. That drum. One drummer's purpose is to remember a certain amount of years of history in the form of a rhythm. Another drummer, this drummer may be doing from 1000 BC to 2000 BC. This drama is doing for you, remember 2000 BC to 3000 BC. That history is still maintained in Africa. And you can go sit with the griots who will sit with the drummers who will play that rhythm, and he can tell you that history going back thousands of years, because that's a tape recorder. Conceptually. When we talk about spirituality, spirituality is your reality. It involves everything that you do. Your culture is just that aspect of spirituality that instructs and informs you. Your culture is your education system to explain your understanding of cosmology and ecology to you through dance, through music, through theater, through poetry, and other ways we will explain values, interests, and principles. So like, back to the decades. Y'all with me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to be spinning off in outer space for a bunch more. You can said, oh, and you remember nothing I had to say, right? So we come back to the necklaces. This is Oya. Oya, I was training and still being trained. You never stop training to be a priest of Oya. Oya is a feminine principle. And that principle has to do with change in process. So they said, Oya, the wind. What does the wind do? It blows away the old, stale, and allows the incoming of the new, refreshed. But it's change in process. And she's drawn in metaphor as a woman with locks. And the brothers Anderson, they get hung up on a pretty sexy little woman with the locks and the painting. But that's a metaphorical symbol of a concept, an idea that has to do with changing of human character. Right? And so Oya, in the metaphor, saves the life of Shango. You know, Shango is the king. This one is symbolic of Shango. Now, Shango is a king because a king is symbolic of not just power, but it's symbolic of order and strength and courage. And you need all of these things in order to grow yourself into a higher being. But that same king has the negative qualities: ego, arrogance, etc. And so in the story of Shango, his ego, his arrogant self, takes over his consciousness. And he gets so big because he's the king, he has two brothers fight each other to see which one's going to inherit or get this wealth from him or whatever. It depends on the story that is told. But in the fighting, one of the brothers killed the other. Then he suddenly realized, oh my God, I caused the death of my own brother because of my arrogance and my ego and so forth. So he runs off in the forest and he hangs himself. And there's a song that goes, also, Omakoso, that says that the king is not dead. The king is not dead. No, the king is not dead because the king is saved by change in the king's spiritual character, Oya. She cuts him down. But in the metaphor, what dies is the negative qualities of Shango. What is given birth to in the spiritual change is the positive qualities of Shango. And so Shango now has the courage to realize the need for change, and so he must marry Oya, which is change in process. And then they're going to run into this guy, Ogun. Okay? And Oya will marry Ogun as well, and she will practice what the women, sisters like this, is the polyandry. Oh, there's some sisters marrying some brothers. She had two husbands, right? But Ogun represents transformation as a result of change. First you got Shango, the courage to want to change. Then you got Oya, the process of change happening. And then you got Ogun, the transformation that occurs as a result of the change. You understand? So if you're going to really understand the Orishas, you got to see them in more than just pictures and beads. They're concept, ideas, and principles and how to develop the human being into the best human being that can be, godlike. Right? Because why does Ogun represent this concept of transformation? Well, they say Ogun is the god of iron, the god of war, and so forth. Yes, symbolically, but When you go to get iron, you get a rock. Rock got all kinds of impurities in it. You dig it up under the ground, and you can't use that rock for anything unless you put it in the fire and you burn out the impurities. You cause transformation to take place, and you come up with steel. Now with steel, you can make farming tools. You can make fighting tools. You've created a transformation of that rock. And so that's a good symbol, metaphorically, to explain the concepts and principles that we're calling Ogun. So that's what our people were doing. We created a university in both the beads that the enemy still can't see. He still don't know what we pulled off. We don't know what we pulled off. We created a whole African university in beads and color coordination and the way we relate to them in their relationship. We took the philosophy from home that was locked in our minds, that we weren't allowed to build buildings to, speak our language to, write down anywhere. We put it in our minds and recreated it in this institutional format, and we were able to retain Africa. We never lost it. We just had difficulty in how we displayed it. And that's what ended up happening with the black church. They weren't Christians. They're going to be Christians now, unfortunately. But we weren't Christians back in the 1800s and 1700s. That's why they call their church the African Methodist Episcopal Church. That's why they call their Freemasonic lodge the African Free Lodge. That's why they call their political association in 1892 the Afro-American League. We didn't forget who we were. Some of us forget because the tyranny was such that we could not express ourselves. But there was always a cadre of brothers and sisters that kept the light of Africa burning. And they did it by their names. Even the First Baptist Church in 1749, I think, in Savannah, Georgia, was called the African Baptist Church, not the Negro Baptist Church. The African Baptist Church. And as much as they would tell you about all the American colonization society created Liberia, that's a lie at its most level. The American Colonization Society, which was put together by a couple of white folks, and they put a lot of black folks in, they wanted to get rid of the free blacks in America because they were afraid our numbers would expand and we would rebel to free our brothers and sisters. So they said, we got to figure out how to get these Negroes out of here. Black folks looked at that concept and said, that's cool. We got a way to get back home. They didn't force nobody on those ships. Those brothers and sisters sold their cows, their chickens, their lands, their whatever they owned to buy passage to this land. And they didn't go and take Liberia, this false notion of the Amero-Liberian. The only Liberia there was the Amero-Liberian. It's a myth, this Amero-Liberian, when it jumped on the other native people. That's a lie. That's why history will erase the mystery. They bought that land, and they shouldn't have paid a penny for a damn piece of it because it was stolen off of it and sold off of it. But still, they bought the land. That became Liberia. And the first war in Liberia was with the brothers and sisters from here and some brothers and sisters from there who were still engaging in the slave trade. And the brothers and sisters from here saying, it is going to stop. I think that was in a place called it's called William something today. That was the first cause for the first war. That we wanted no more slavery on the land that we had just left slavery to come back to. But you got to study history to get rid of the mystery. If you don't know your story, people can give you any story they want you to have. And you'll buy it. And then there's Sierra Leone. It didn't just pop up out of the ground. We built Sierra Leone. The people, most of the blacks who built Sierra Leone came from Jamaica and the United States. We don't even know about the Jamaicans. There was a whole maroon population that wouldn't give up in Jamaica, so the British moved them out to Nova Scotia. Right? And they say, this ain't working. We want to go home. And they followed the other blacks who had fought with the British here in North America and had gone to the same Nova Scotia, but the racist white folks up there wouldn't give us enough land to live over. So they said, take us back to Africa. And then they wanted to get rid of all of the blacks out of England. So they sent that group, they rounded them up and they sent them back to Africa. And those three groups of people built what we know today as Freetown, which became Sierra Leone. History will erase the mystery and let you know you weren't what they told you were. We were bigger than what they said we were. We never forgot women was holding them in skirt, but they're just shouting. They're not shouting. They're dancing their ethnic dance that their grandma taught them and their great-grandma taught them that they brought from every land, Yoruba land, Igbo land, Congo land. So study those footsteps in churches. There's few of the old people still around who can dance. We call shouting, and you can see those are the ethnic dance from Africa. Take a photo, we got this camera now, video it, and then look at some African dance steps, and you see it's the same step, same hand movement, same body movements. So what the church was, it was a sanctuary where we could be Africans in secret. So everything came out of the church. Our economic thing was there, our political thing was there, our social, that was the sanctuary, the only safe place we had to try and be ourselves and maintain the African spiritual system to some degree. White folks won't march down a river in white, being baptized, that's something we were doing, replicating the secret societies that we were a part of as young people back in Africa. Because initiation simply means to agree to become a part of something. And so you go through a ritual so that you can remember what you agreed to become a part of. And then learn the principles, concepts, and ideas that will govern your character so you can build a society that is safe for you and your children and your women. So spirituality is your reality. It is everything you do. But it is governed by the wisdom that our ancestors learned from the cosmology and the ecology that we live in. It's like many of the Yoruba brothers and sisters will say, Oludumare. And because we grew up in this Christian, Judeo-Christian thing, we refer to Oludumare as being a masculine phenomenon. But if you study the Yoruba language, Oludumare is a feminine phenomenon, not a masculine phenomenon. Because men can't give birth. We can't begin anything. Only a womb can begin the process. That don't mean women are superior to men, because that's anti-African too. Everything in nature teaches us this harmony and balance and the opposites, like the Ben was talking about the laws of opposites. So you talk about harmony and balance in the opposites. If you ever see the picture of a Set, he's always sitting on a throne, which the Masons have adopted and called the square. But we won't go into that part. But she's sitting on a throne. And then she has on her head a throne. And the posture she's sitting in makes her the throne. And that's why her Ru is sitting on her lap. She's not sitting on his lap. Because she is the throne. She is the power, and she registers the male the authority. That's African cosmology and African rules. And if you change and tamper with that, you upset the balance of things. You know, Hatshepsut wasn't the first woman ruler in Egypt. Nobody knows how many women rulers there were. The fact that a woman being a king is nothing new anywhere in Africa. There's women kings all over Africa right now. Because our system is designed for that. But it doesn't mean a woman is taking the place of the man or the man is taking the place of the woman. It depends on the condition under which the society is in. That will determine which one of these forces need to be where. Now that is determined in older days, and it can still be determined in today's day for what we call a reading. Now I'm not a big priest writer, because I can read. I ain't gonna go there. But I have studied how to do reading, because all of us have to study how to throw the calories. I've studied the 6, I've studied 16. But there are people, there are scientists, male and female scientists, who understand the laws of probability and statistics. Because that's what those shells, those 16 shells, when you throw it, and there's 3 positions they could come in, on the side, on the back, on the front. That probability of statistics says you can only get this configuration so many times. But given a number, there's a certain number of configurations you can get, which comes into thousands. And what our ancestor did was interpret each one of those configurations. And we have a book. We call them the Odus. Nobody ever referred to our book. It has more verses than the Bible. And each one of those configurations that can be thrown with the way cells form is represented by a verse in that Bible because it has already been replicated historically. And those verses is then assigned to mean certain things, given when it falls and how many times it falls. So we have a sacred science system. We didn't lose it. It's still there. And that's just one culture. Just as the Yoruba have it in this culture, the Igbo have it in this culture, the people in Benin's got it in this culture, and there may be variations, but they're all talking about the same thing, the same sun, the same moon, the same stars, the same constellation, the same earth. It's just that we have different ways because we came upon the knowledge at a different time, in a different ecology, trying to explain it in certain ways based on what you have in your environment as tools to carry out that explanation. Trust me, the Japanese with the Shinto has got the same system that we think we lost. The Chinese with the Taoism is talking about the same system. The I Ching is talking about the same system. The Buddhists, they're talking about the same system. Do you understand me? There's only one universe. There's only one sun. All the stars we see in China, we see the same stars in Newark. Alright? The moon they see in Japan, we see that same moon in Newark. And what our ancestors did was to study it. They said, what does all of this mean at the end of the day? If you're to be the optimum of what you as a human being was created to be, then you must master your relationship to cosmology and ecology. See brother right here? With his nice golden black, he looked tired, working hard. But he's nothing but dirt. Now you say, why you want that? Say that brother ain't nothing but dirt. If you had carrot this morning, it came from the dirt. If you had collard greens, it came from the dirt. If you ate some beef, it ate the grass from the dirt. Okay. That's why they say ashes to ashes. If you go right back to the, 400 or something different minerals that make us up, when that energy separates from that matter decomposes back into the 400 plus elements that make up dirt, which made up the plants and the fruits and the stuff that you ingested to give you the energy to keep going. That's the science we knew and understood. That's why we know you can't say I'm spiritual and you ain't physically healthy. You understand? Because a big part of spirituality is your diet. You can't say I'm spiritual, but you're not engaged in some activity to keep the muscles strong. Some martial arts form or some dance form or working something. That is a part of being spiritual, being whole. They have reduced us to thinking religion is spirituality. And then they've created this thing around cosmology. I mean, what do you call it? What do you call religion? What's the word? Theology. And they have you in this theological discussion about Isaac and Esau and Jacob and the Prophet Muhammad. And the Prophet Muhammad never said none of the foolishness I hear people say. They read the literature. There was Akhenaten, the fellow of Egypt, one of his favorite prayers was, "O soul God, you who have given birth to by none, and who was given birth to by none, and you alone rule, and I cannot confer. I'm your servant." Now, when the Arabs came in and saw that prayer, flipped it, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Kul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. The same prayer, almost word for word. It's called the Ikhlas. So, oh Allah, you alone is the God. You were given birth to by none, and none gave birth to you. Same prayer. It's the body of knowledge. But then the Prophet Muhammad said, according to 3 hadith, I come not to bring a new religion, but to restore that which was here in the beginning. So how do we get a new religion? The same thing with those we call Christians. The Romans invade our land. They beat us up, murder us, genocide us, burnt down many of the temples. The temples you think you see in Egypt, they destroyed almost 1/3 of those temples. That they just broke down and built their houses with. The reason the pyramid looked like they did today was covered with smooth, what's that stone called?
Limestone.
Limestone. And they took that and made their houses.
That's correct.
Okay. So when they came, and after they got through beating us up and taking the land and got control, they realized we need to have order like they had before we beat them up. So we can't, this barbarian that we are is not going to maintain the civilization that we found, that we conquered. So they had to find a way, and we helped them, because we didn't have any choice. The learned men of Kemet constructed Christianity for them, to raise them to what they call from a dead level to a living perpendicular square, to bring them up to where they can function as human beings. Of course, it didn't work. We hoped it would have worked. It did save a lot, though. It probably worked better than if we left with the barbarian that kicked in the doors. But it was never meant for you. That's only fragments of the periphery of what you're about. You're the universe in its totality. They don't want you to know that. They want to reduce you to just the sensation of sex and the high that comes from drugs or alcohol, or the euphoria that comes from being happy over something that's joyful to you. But they don't want you to know that you are the universe, and that with your thoughts, when properly trained, you can change your environment anytime you want. Dr. King was the mystery. Malcolm was the mystery. They were living beings. Died at 39-year-olds. They were young boys compared to most of us. Right? But what made them so different? They discovered the God within them. And they took the power of that understanding of the internal divine, and they united it with the external divine, and they made us hear them. We heard them. There are many other people who bring wisdom to us, but we don't hear them because they haven't hooked it up. Elijah Muhammad, who we have so underplayed in this culture, Elijah brought us wisdom in a way we could hear him. Yes, Malcolm was his mouthpiece, but that's because Malcolm could hear him. Farrakhan, it took him some while, but he finally heard the messenger. When you make sound, last night I was listening to, watching something, and then this one song, G Wiz came. Oh, see, somebody else knows what G Wiz. And it was some Asian thing. I was watching something about the ninjas, right? About the ninja training thing. But somehow G Wiz just popped up in the middle of this Japanese film. Of course, I cut off the Japanese film, went to my phone, hit G Wiz, brought Carla off and spent the next half hour listening to G Wiz. Bringing back all of those memories of all of those years, and Slow Dragon, Club 17, along the hot girl. Just enjoying myself. But that, hearing that sound, and at this time, that's 1961, the white man hadn't figured out how to take the octaves out of black voice that was recorded. You know, when we were singing back, or we singing now, they have a technology that can take the octaves out. So I can hear you and I can't feel you. But back then, we could hear the music and we could feel the music. So whatever Carl Thomas was feeling when she said, gee whiz, I was feeling it. You know, my lady was feeling it. I said, she's still right here. I should have called Betty Ann and told her to speak. Many years ago. We're still in touch after almost 50 years. But the point I'm trying to make is like, you are the universe. That's what African culture and spiritual system is about. It's not an aside. What they have here in America, you have a capitalist, exploitative, laissez-faire, social order, and cultural context. And then they give you religion as an addendum on the side. That's supposed to make you feel good after you not get through robbing, killing, abusing, and misusing. That's not what African society is about. We had a one order, the order of the universe itself. We are the universe in its totality. Every one of us is a universe. A few months ago, I was laying up in the hospital, thought I wouldn't be here today, because I've been struggling with a prostate pain for 35 years. My prostate was bigger than a grapefruit. It's supposed to be as big as a walnut, right? Mine was like this, so I spent decades of bleeding, wearing pads, and wearing diapers and stuff. I've come in lectures right here at African Echoes with catheter strapped to my leg. You didn't know, because my pants were nice and big, or I had on a robe. Because I figured that I wasn't going to allow them to color me with what they had as a remedy. So I had to live with it and figure out how to live with it. But finally, they came up with something that actually could shrink the prostate. It's called embolism catheterization. And so I was the second one in this hospital that they tried it on. I decided I'm jumping off the cliff because I had enough. I had been going through a terrible time and in and out of the hospital for a couple of weeks. So I said, I just got to try something. I'll just leave. Time to go, pack it, rack it, let's go. It's over. And it worked. You know, it actually worked. But in the process, they can't give you any anesthetic. I'm laying in an operating room on the table for 3 hours, right? And they run some wires through an artery in my wrist all the way down to my groin. Because if they go through your groin, you bleed too much. So they have to come in this way. And they're on the screen trying to work this thing out. So when they first go in, they zap what it is, they didn't want to kill it, because you don't want to kill it, because that would kill me too. They wanted to reduce the oxygen that it was getting that was allowing it to continually grow. So they cut the oxygen flow by 70 to 75% by catheterizing certain large blood vessels leading to the prostate. Well, when they hit the right side, that wasn't too bad. Even I was in some pain and some nurse, she rubbing my shoulder. Listen, you're going to be all right. I wanted to cuss that. Right? But I said, no, I just am. I'm fine. I get kind of dozing out every now and then. But what they did, and I'm listening to all the doctors. We got a room full of surgeons and technicians and everybody's on the computer and the nurses and hoping that I don't die on them. That's what all of that was for, right? And so, because the worry was the blood clot or puncturing the artery, with those wires. Well, anyway, when they zapped the ones on the right side, did that for an hour and a half. But when they turned to get the ones on the left side, guess what happened? The one on the right side sent a message, the one on the left side said, they're coming for you. And every time they tried to get that little electrode on that thing, it would move out of the way. Your damn blood vessels had a hole all of its own. And I'm laying on the table. They don't know what's going on, but I'm laying there hearing them talk, and I know exactly what's going on. That this is a itself. It may be a subsystem of a larger system, but the subsystem contains the totality of the larger system. Like we are a subsystem of the greater universe, but we contain all of the potentiality of the greater universe. That's what Congo was God. I said, no. What is behind libation? No, libation is simple. You just call in the dead to come and hang out with you. To be complicated shit.
Yeah.
Oh, no. You just tell us the dead folks that you know who was cool with you when they was here. Who didn't go nowhere except into invisibility and energy. Walk with you every day, all day, and you're not even aware they're there because the culture don't teach you that they are there. But when you use a ceremony and you focus your energy deliberately to tell them to come and hang with us, those things we call ancestors come and hang with us. You're calling the dead to come among the living. Because in African culture, there's no such thing as dead.
That's right.
The same wheatgrass that died in the fall will germinate in the spring and summer and come out and give you wheat in the next season. So you said, oh, the wheatgrass died. No, it didn't. It just went through a transitional process of recreation and self-redemption like you do and you will do, all of us will do. When I was laying on that table in the hospital, I'm like, okay, that's a wrap, bro. I hope you gave the best speech you gave the last time you gave last year. You're going to have no more from you, right? But after about 30 minutes, the guy was finally giving up my hand and telling the other doctor, well, we may have to let this small go home and let him heal up, and about 2 months we bring him back again. And I'm saying, hell, I can't go to this one again. So I got the serious. I did what the trust was doing. I told his ancestors, do not do this to me. Fix this. Within 2 seconds, the guy said, we got it. Because I knew they heard me. Because they knew I didn't want to come back there like that. And I discovered something about them when I was going through that process. I was in the hospital for 4 weeks. And there was a man in the room when I first got in there, but they moved him out early. Then another young man came, he stayed 2 or 3 days, and they moved him. And I'm in the room all by myself. And then one night I just heard some people talking. They say, the longer you stay in the hospital, the more you're going down. You think you're in there to get better, but that ain't the way it's working. You get weaker, you get more disposed to catching germs and things. I had tubes running inside of me from down here, big jug bottled up and over pumping water in. I had stuff in my arm, and I'm taking pills almost every 2 or 3 hours. They're waking me up to give me these pills. So I hear these people talking, so I said, oh, maybe when I fell asleep, they moved somebody in the room. But then I could lean up and I could see there was no one in the room. But I could still hear the people just behind me talking behind the curtain. And I could really hear them talking, but it wasn't audible enough to know exactly what they were saying. Then I realized, that was Mama in there. That was Ning in there. That was my big brother, my big sister, Grandma in there. And then I started having a serious conversation. Y'all gotta get a brother out of here. Y'all gotta help me. And the nurse came to the small yard, I said, I'm fine. I'm just talking to my family up in here. We just started having a conversation. And the doctor came the next day, I told him, please, you need to take these tubes out of me. I can't handle it no more. Weeks of the stuff, the whole messy mess. And he said, no, Mr. Small, that can't happen. We can't do that. You gotta stay here. And we're trying to figure out, we meet with these people. That's what they were telling me about this surgical thing they could do. And I said, no, I need to go. So that night I got seriously talking to the people. I could hear it. Next month, 7 o'clock, the same doctor comes in my room and says, you're going home today. And I go like, stop playing. He said, no, you're going home today. And he proceeded to start disassembling all of that stuff that I was hooked up to. It took until about 4 in the afternoon before they finally let me go. And I wouldn't ask him why. But that's when I knew my mom was right there. My grandma was right there. They carried on that noise that I heard until I got sense enough to realize how to talk back to them again. I've had an experience that would blow your mind with the ancestors. But just this recent one, it was just so real. And they acted so complete and so quickly ancestors. You're the biggest fool walking around.
Here you go.
When we think of it as Christ, or you think of it as Allah, or you think of it as Yahweh, or you think of it as Omari, or you think of it as Sogabisa, you're talking about the same thing. There's different ritualistic methodology to try and explain it to you. Now, I was an imam. How many persons know that I was an imam? How many persons know that I was the imam of the Muslim mosque founded by Malcolm X after his assassination at age 21? I was the only imam in New York at that time who was elected to the imamate. I didn't get appointed or appoint myself. I didn't want it. I thought, like, you had no idea the fight I from Haji Shamjab, from Elizabeth, was my teacher, and Camille Wadu from Newark. Those were my teachers. And those men taught me. I went from stupid little black country boy and know nothing to being almost an Islamic scholar in a year. I mean, they just, taught me. But the one thing that I learned when I was going through that process, early on, that we were not talking about different things. Because at the same time, Malcolm had two friends. One name was Gus Denizu. You hear him call his name on the TV. Nana Apari Denizu. The other was Baba, the surgeon, who started the Yoruba village in South Carolina. So those two men became my mentors and my friends. So I started studying Yoruba at the same time I started studying Islam. And I'm studying Yoruba while I'm an imam. Of course, I'm a Muslim, but I didn't take that very kindly. One morning, I'm not going to call their name. They rolled up on my mosque at 3 a.m. in the morning, 12 guns strong, and tell me why they should kill me. And it was only me and Brother Jerry there. I told Brother Jerry, you had nothing to say. He said it. And I'm going to sit there, that I'm on Carvey Mountain. I had that under a professor. I said, I'm going, but the imam going too. So, but there was one brother in the group who I buried his father, and I didn't recognize him about 4 or 5 months before. Because his imam wouldn't bury the father because the father wasn't a Muslim, so he couldn't give him a janazah. I said, there's no rule against this. So I did it. So that one man, and the thing that really heated, jumped up and said, man, Brother Small's a good man. And then the man jumped up and said, let's go. That's spirit. His name is Jamal. Never forget Jamal, because he saved my life that moment. But the point I'm making is like this thing that we have gotten caught into in America. I'm a Hebrew Israelite. I'm a Muslim. I'm an Orthodox Muslim. I'm a Muslim under the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. I'm a Muslim under Cyrus Muhammad. Ain't none of it is different, brothers and sisters. I'm a Yoruba. I'm an Akan. None of it is different. These are different systems of trying to approach the science of the universe. Some of the systems are better perfected than others. Some of the systems are more effective than others. And any system that is not designed in your culture will not work well for you. Islam is a beautiful system, but it wasn't designed in our culture. It was designed in a Eurasian, Euro-Arab culture from the fragments of a system that they found in place. Christianity the same way. They may have been a guy named Christ, that they called Christ. They didn't know they called him Christ back then. But there may have been a character like that. And I'm going into this because y'all are all still basically Christians and Muslims, and I understand that. So, but if you study, you don't study the Jesus character, you miss the whole point of the story. Guys, in the world, we always look for a Messiah. There's always a liberator coming. So it was not unusual that then they were looking for a liberator. And when the young boy began to realize himself at about 13, what did they do? They took him out to Kemet to hide him from the Romans, right? Now, he couldn't have been a little blonde boy, because everybody in Kemet was black. So if he was a little blonde child, they couldn't hide him down in Kemet. But he stays out in Africa and he studies the African so-called mystery system until he's 32. Ironic that the Mason wouldn't become a good master Mason, and I'm a principal Mason. And I'm proud of it, because it's a working institution that we could use, you know? And you get the 32nd degree until you reach the top of the mountain. So why didn't Christ come back at 33, 34? No, they did 32. So somebody's playing with your mind with systems of how to approach spiritual understanding. Let's just take this story and play with this story for me. Show you what you don't read in the book that you thought you've been reading all this time, right? He comes back and he starts to teach people about what? About love. Now love, they say, look, y'all think love is sex. Why don't say you make it love? But love ain't got nothing to do with sex. Love has to do with discovering the divine in you and recognizing the divine in me. And that is the foundation for building a real relationship. And that's the reason most of our relationships fail. We don't know the God in us, and we certainly don't know the God in our mates. Because if you can't recognize the divine in you, you're not going to recognize the divine in me.
Talk truth.
You know? So he's teaching this truth. But the social order, the Roman government realized this is fundamentally against our ideology. He's going to cause some trouble. So they go after the young man, and they arrest him because they said somebody betrayed him, a guy named Judas. And they give you a false story, because Judas never betrayed Christ. I remember when my grandfather told me that when I was little, I could not understand it. The Bible said he betrayed him, right? And my grandfather said, well, if Judas, they can say heaven, it's heaven. So if God won't let Judas into heaven, that's God's business. And I don't know, why did God want to let Judas in heaven? Because Grandpa knew something I didn't know. Because he was one of these Mason guys, and he knew stuff. But anyway, let me tell you the Jesus story. So they put him in jail. Judas takes the money. They said Judas committed suicide because when he realized that his man was in jail, he couldn't get out. But here's why he went to jail. You sisters caused that. Black woman. Yeah, y'all caused that. See, Jesus was married to this lady called Mary Magdalene, who y'all like to call a whore, so nobody can look at the wedding feast. Yet there's nothing in the Bible that calls her a whore. Nothing in any Bible in the world. It even refers to this woman slightly as a whore. So why do preachers call her a whore and a harlot? To keep you from seeing who she really is. She's the man's wife. They had a son who had been arrested by the Romans. What was the son's name? Anybody knew Jesus' son?
You got one?
It's so simple, it's scary. That's why history makes the message with Barabbas. Barabbas, Bar, son of Barabbas, the root word Rabbi, son of the Lord. They throw it right in your face and you miss it. Mary said, you went out there and started all that crap up in that temple. And you got my boy in jail. Now you get your behind and get him out of jail. So Jesus turns himself in. No matter what the detail is, Barabbas is let go. Isn't that what happened?
Correct.
Yet they say Barabbas is wanted for murder. Because he was the leader of the Zealots, which was a revolutionary group fighting against the Romans. So Barabbas is let go. Jesus is taken to the cross about 2 in the afternoon. It's Friday. So that's the Sabbath going to break up between 4:30 and 5 o'clock. So you can't have nobody up on the cross at 4:35 because you can't do that on the Sabbath. You can't even bury him. So you got to get him off the cross in time to bury him before the Sabbath begins. So you got about 2 hours to kill him. Yet it takes a week and a half or so to die from asphyxiation on the cross. So there's 2 other guys up there with Jesus. They tell you in the book, they break the other 2 guys' legs, right? Because they got to get them all off the cross early, but they can't let them walk away. So they break their legs. Why don't they break Jesus' leg? Because he got to walk away. Right? But you missed all that. You didn't pay attention to it. They didn't break his leg. But they break the other 2. They say this in the literature. Right? But in the literature, Jesus says, I thirst. And they said they gave him vinegar and gall. Well, I ask you, worked the language and done the etymology, gone means pure poppy juice. Vinegar's fermented apple juice. So that's what they gave him. Jesus was high as a kite. Right? That means his metabolism was so low, he would appear to be dead, but he really wasn't dead. So the preacher wanted to tell me, well, I got you now, small. They stuck him in the side with a sword, with a spear. And I goes like, really? And what did they say? Go with you, brother. What did they say? That water and blood emanated from the womb. Talk to any surgeon, any doctor that you know. The only time a human would bleed water and blood is when your metabolism is so slow, your brain isn't calling for that much oxygen, the heart don't have to pump, and you will not die if you weather that oxygen for a certain period of time. No, you have brain damage. Hello? It's right there in your book. Now, I'm not making this stuff up. This is in the Bible. So you take them and take them to the tomb of one of his wealthy brothers. Joseph was down there. He said, I got a tomb right down the street. But that's one of his boys. Joseph is one of his followers, even though he sits on the Sanhedrin. And then the next morning, it wasn't the 12 disciples that said he was written. It was who? It was a group of sisters. Because the sisters were what? The healers. They went there, patched up that wound, gave them whatever they didn't get to get that other stuff out of the system. And then they told the brothers, well, your man said to meet him over at this town down the road. And so we read this stuff and we really don't even believe what we're reading. Because we're not really reading. We're listening to what somebody told you. Just think you see when you were reading. Right? And even in the book they tell you again he ain't dead. Because when Thomas get there, Thomas go like, no, you ain't, we saw you die. And what did he tell Thomas? Stick your finger in the hole in my hand. That was no spirit there, right? That was a physical thing. Stick your finger in the hole. There's a nail in it. And that ain't okay because I chopped up my finger with a saw the other day trying to fix the door in my left boy room. And I'm still here. A little nail through the hand ain't okay. I'm telling you all of this because as we think of the religious systems that we use, and the document that explains those systems to us, we see how little we know about the very systems that we use. But if we bring it back and really start getting serious with understanding the African, and the African American will play on you for a minute. The African American, the only group of Africans in the Western Hemisphere that was enslaved for a shorter period of time than the African Americans, the Trinidadians. Brothers and sisters who were born in Trinidad. African Americans, you were enslaved on any appreciable number from 1740 until 1860. How many times is that? You weren't enslaved for no 400 years. You were enslaved for less than 200 years. But somebody can play with your mind by telling you the 400-year thing, and then you don't work it out and don't realize that, wait a minute. How do you get 400 years out of that? Even though the terrorism continues even today, and we call part of that terrorism Jim Crow, the shortest enslaved Africans in the Western Hemisphere is referred to as having the less retention. It would make common sense that the shortest enslaved would have the most retention. You all understand what I mean by retention? Yeah. Meaning the things African about you that you managed to keep in your culture, right? But because we were forced under the terrorism, we grew up, and for brothers and sisters in Jamaica, he was in a majority black state. Haiti, a majority black state with a minority white state. We're one of the only groups that had to grow up in a majority white state as an African enslaved minority. So our approach to freedom took very other forms, yet it never ceased. You cannot study a generation when there isn't a rebellion, not even a year. And one of the second largest Maroon communities in the Western Hemisphere, outside of Jamaica, outside of Brazil, and Colombia. We forget about Colombia sometimes having the third largest black population in this hemisphere. Right? The fourth largest, or third largest Maroon community was the African American community in Florida, which the white man has tricked us in referring to as Seminoles. Instead of saying that what he's calling Seminole comes from the word Cimarron, which means runaway slave. Right? The Spanish word Cimarron. And that's where the word maroon comes from in Jamaica, because the Spanish was there first talking about the Cimarron, but when the British took away from it, it became the Maroons. Right? So in Florida, they took the same word Cimarron, and they made that word Seminole. And the blacks in Florida are still fighting in courts today to have their identity restored to them, the white-skinned Seminole, right, who weren't the Seminole back then, wants to take all the land and the benefits from the black-skinned Seminole, who's the real Seminole, who was a runaway slave out of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. But history will help you erase the mystery. And then we can come back to African spirituality, and I'll work it to a conclusion, and then say a few things about what's going on in the continent today. But African spirituality is to know that what you're calling spirituality is really your sacred science. It is the wisdom of the universe as interpreted by our ancestors and applied in a social context to govern our daily behavior. Do you understand what I just said? The knowledge of cosmology and ecology was our ideology. That is our sacred system. And what the whites did, when they realized this, they said, look, we're going to get in this religious thing, and we're going to take the science thing, we're going to take the real spirituality, we're going to call it Western science. He hasn't lived long enough to discover all the wisdom that's involved in what he's calling science. And so we miss it sometimes because we look at ourselves through their lens. When we talk about the great Dogon brothers and sisters, because the two white guys and brothers gave them some wisdom, we see them as doing something extraordinary. But the Dogons did was extraordinary, because that same Sirius A and Sirius B star, they were looking at in the Dogon, and we said, oh wow, that's the same star they were looking at in Kemet. Right. Thousands of years earlier. They didn't wait to become Dogons to look at their star. And how did they see the star? They are the star. If you are the universe, you don't have to get on a spaceship and go nowhere. You're in outer space. The Earth is spinning in the same outer space as Mars and Jupiter is spinning in. What do you think? You stationary on a pole someplace looking at everything else? No, you're part of all the spinning. Everybody sitting in here today is made up of light that comes from the total universe. The major light source that gives us the energy is the sun. But we get the light from Mars and Jupiter and Pluto and all of those other. It may have taken it 10,000 years to hit your body, but it hits your body every day. You're made up of the universe itself. Our ancestors understood that. And guess what? Prophet Muhammad understood it. That's why you have the pearls of faith that nobody teaches, because they don't understand how to teach the 99 names of Allah. There's 99 Orishas. There's 99 Loas. There's 99 Obasum. There's 99 qualities of the divine. And you should learn how to develop not only in your character, but in your social construct and in your family. Then you'll understand the connection why the brothers in North Africa converted immediately to Islam when the Buddha of As invaded in the 800s. They weren't converting to something that was a stranger to them systemically. What happened when the Turks take over the system and Arabize and Turkifize everything by the 10th century? We were caught in a catch-22. I'm talking about the brothers and sisters you call Moors now. You understand? And they were the first ones that got stolen into slavery by the Turks, not the Arabs. So we got to make a difference between Arabic brothers and sisters and the Turkish folks. They're not the same people. They just take over our system at different times in history. That's why history will erase a lot of the mystery and allow you to see what you're looking at clearly. So, everybody know about, and one of the easiest way to see it, everybody know, what is my stuff? Tell me about astrology. Astrology is simply the way we explain astronomy to the masses. Astrology is how we explain astronomy to the masses. The people we call priests and priestesses, they were the scientists. And so they couldn't work in the field or work on the river or work in the different labor it took to keep society going. So society said, look, we'll make sure you can eat. We'll make sure you got a place to live. We'll make sure you're respected. But you do the work of the science. You study the universe and interpret it for the rest of us. So what they learned from studying the stars, they had to explain that in a way to the masses so they could learn how to use the knowledge of the stars for fishing, for planting, for having babies, etc., etc. So cosmology, properly explained, is called astrology. Astrology is cosmology, the study of cosmology, which we call the star, the moon, the sun, and all the other things we see, explained to the people so they could use it on a daily basis. The same thing with the biology, you know, and with the diet. We knew that certain food could do what we call today, be what we call antibiotics. And we knew what this food was. So we've got the Moscow medical papyrus. We've got the C. Smith medical papyrus. There's about 7 or 8 Egyptian ancient Kemetic medical books on different parts of the human body that these thieves have in their museums, including surgery of the brain and the heart. And so we think we're seeing something new. You're not seeing nothing new. You're seeing them finally learning how to interpret something that you had that was very old. So let me conclude with spirituality is what? Your reality. Your sacred science is the knowledge of cosmology and ecology. Religion is a tool of spirituality, not the reverse. So if you remember those things, and remember that you are the universe, you're made up of the matter and the energy that makes up everything else in the universe. Okay? It is how you get consciously constructed that will determine how you can use what you are to move and free yourself from the constructs and the construct. The only thing that's holding you prisoner is fear and your false notion of God. If you can get those two things clear, get rid of the fear and the false notion of God, and understand there's no such thing as death, nobody can make you a slave. Nobody. And so that is your message on that. And I just want to make a couple of things clear for you to see who we still are. If we look today, Zimbabwe sends $9.77 billion worth of raw material out of the country every year. Gabon sent $10.92 billion out of the country. Congo sent $3.69 billion out of the country. $369 billion. Angola sent $32 billion. This was going to Europe and America. Ghana sent $14 billion. South Africa sent $124 billion. Nigeria sending $52 billion. What are we getting back for all of that? And so then we come to these beautiful brothers of Burkina Faso. I will go and die for him 1,000 times if it's possible to do it. And the beautiful brothers and sisters we got in Mali, Nigeria. They've taken a step that's going to be the biggest step of this century in freeing African people. And they've broken away from ECOWAS and the ECOWAS people are upset, but they were threatening to send an army against those people on behalf of the French, the Americans, the dogs. Talking about they were coming to protect democracy. You didn't care about democracy the month before. When the French was profiting from it, from murdering and raping and plundering people in the Congo. Right now we're losing, and just since 1996, we lost 6 million people in the country. You know what 6 million dead bodies are gone? In the last year, we've had the rape of over 4 million of our women in the country. TV station to saying a damn thing about
Talk
it.
about it, man.
Right? But you need to be where you want to be free. You want to know what spirituality is? Get control of your reality.
That's right.
If you got control of your reality, you will begin to grow your spirituality. Because your spirituality is your reality. Thank you very much.
And listen, didn't I tell you you wouldn't be disappointed? You know, one of the things that we have to acknowledge always is, and Professor Smalls touched on that, is maintaining our health, our standard of living as individuals, because it's so important in order for us to do work. Did you know the worst revolutionary is the sick revolutionary?
Absolutely.
And in this case, that means that we need to pay more attention to our health. I mean, in every possible way that we can. You know, when you're young, there's the old saying, young. But when you get to a certain age of maturity, we should be more responsible about the things that we, you know, take into our body, but most of all, how we want to maintain ourselves. So, one of the things that Professor talked about was having to go through those particular medical experiences. We have a practitioner amongst our midst, Zulatifa too, who worked in the hospital for decades and shared with us a lot of those experiences. And then herself had to deal with bouts of medical crisis. And because of that, she was able to overcome. First of all, let's first stand up. Stand up, everybody. Stand up. I want y'all to turn around. Zoom, you ain't got to turn. You right there. I want y'all to applaud Zulatifa. She represents the heart and soul of what every word that Professor Smalls talked about. She is the embodiment of every aspect of what he said in regard to spirituality. And she represents that heart and soul for us here, and always been a beacon of light for African echoes. Again, Zul, we thank you, my dear, and we always are here for you when it comes down to dealing with whatever crisis that you deal with, because when it comes down to us, you are always there, always there. That's right. Thank you, Zul. Thank you. As we move on, we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. One, we got a raffle to do. We got a couple of books we're going to raffle off. And we have food. As you do know, food is the complementary aspect of part of this particular program. And, you know, the sisters and the brothers there will serve you. Everybody will get a plate, get something to drink, and to sojourn and socialize amongst each other in order to show our family. We're going to do that in a minute. We're going to show, you know, that we are family and that we, you know, belong together, and that, you know, we've been a long time doing this because of the pandemic and, you know, the scare of not really going to, you know, socialize among groups and things like that. And I just want to say it's good to be back, you know, to be back amongst the community, to be back, you know, seeing your, you know, in-person faces and embracing and, you know, loving one another. You know, it's just good to feel this again. So, we're going to give Professor Smalls a few seconds, and then we're going to give some question and answers. And listen to this now, because we only got so much time. It's going to be 4 questions, 4. And I expect that we would have 2, that's right, 2 questions from sisters and 2 questions from brothers, if that's all right with y'all. 2 questions from sisters and 2 questions from brothers. Okay?
Thanks, Brother.
And y'all know, we're going women first.
Yeah. Now, while you're getting it together with the question, I forgot to tell you that some books y'all need, it'll be on the recording, so you'll be getting it.
That's right.
One is called Traditional Wisdom in African Proverbs, and Brother can get a shot of that one. And of course, we want Stolen Legacy. Everybody needs to read this because you got to understand what they stole from you. So if you don't understand what was stolen, you be thinking stuff that's yours is theirs.
That's right.
And of course, Shakan Fadil gave us this masterpiece,
Oh,
Civilization and Barbarism. Everybody got to read this 3-4 times, then read it another time to get that one right. And then we have 2 new ones that is worthy of study. Spirituality Before Religions, Professor Kaba Khomeini. You have got to get this book. He really gets into it deeply, right? And a brother that you don't see much is this brother, Dr. Wade Nobles. This is a bad dude when it comes to African spirituality. And this one is called Sick, right? It's talking about the spirit. From Black Psychology to Science of Being by Dr. Wade Nobles. But it's all about spirituality, that he breaks it down scientifically. And then this one, the last one, is a young brother who I met who was teaching at the American University in Cairo a couple of years ago, and he asked me to give a lecture. And I said, I'm not coming to Cairo. I'll go to Zoom. You ain't killing Brother Small. So we settled on not doing a Zoom for this young brother, Maurice Hines. And he was doing his dissertation. Of course, they wouldn't let him publish his actual dissertation. So when he got back home last year, he published part of the actual dissertation. It's called Islam and the Ancient Mysteries. This brother really walks on water. This young brother, he's in his early 30s, but extraordinary research because he speaks Arabic and he reads it fluently. So he's able to go to the University and study a literature that you and I can never get access to. So now I'll take the question, but I think that literature is important and good for you to know.
My dear, stand up and give your name.
Yes, hi. Please, James. And so we have all these religions, and I always seen it as religions that keeps us separated. You know, and do you see it at any time where we can have unity? Because right now, the Caucasian man is ruling us. You know, we doing his bidding.
Well, let me answer that really quick. That's why I tell you, first of all, they seem different because we make them different. If we tell them, that's the same things that the Arabs call Islam. That's the same things that we call it Europe. The only difference in any of it, if it wasn't designed for you by you and reflect your image, then it is not good for you. You will be able to use anything. I can give you a log if your ship go down at sea. A rotten log will keep you afloat for a minute, but it ain't gonna keep you afloat that long. You need me to roll up that African yacht called the Yoruba, the Igbo, the Akan, the Congo. I want a God that looks like me. And I don't care if I don't know nothing more about it except it looks like me. Because all the gods that you worship and all the gods you serve haven't done it. Malcolm said it, right? If it hadn't done it anymore for you, then it doesn't now throw it away anyway. Because it hasn't been done much use. Because we're still fighting in the same position we were fighting in 1865 after we got out of slavery. So let's go back home. If I want a turnip to be a turnip, I can't disguise it as a white potato. Turnip got to go back to being a turnip. I'm an African. I don't want to be an Afro-Christian. I don't want to be an Afro-Muslim. I don't want to be an Afro-Buddhist. I don't want to be an Afro-nothing. I want to be an African. That means give me my voodoo back, give me my hoodoo back, and that's fine. Go back. That's what you do. You go back home. You become the light. You understand? If you go back home, it takes some studying. Like those books I just gave you will be very helpful. The one brother right here from Jersey, his books I always mention, the Brother Carradine, Ifa Carradine.
Oh yeah.
It's called The Handbook of Yoruba Religion. It's worth having. By Ifa Carradine. They give you basic foundational stuff. You know? And there's a couple of others, there's some new ones coming out. But don't be afraid to go and read African literature. Read African authors. We didn't die on the continent, we were writing every day we were there. And believe me, you're just an African queen. You used to be an African princess, but now you done grew up. You're an African queen. And don't be afraid to be that. You don't have to apologize to anybody for being the African queen that you are. And people say, well, you don't know your history. Well, I'll take that I know. That is enough for me.
One more woman, please. Can we get somebody? Come on, I know somebody want to ask a question.
I have a
Go
question.
ahead, Anna.
So I was actually at the event where Dr. Julius Gardner spoke, and one of the things he mentioned was having a combined vision. It's something that's been on the back of my head. Can you give us a possibility of an example of a combined vision?
Well, one of the mistakes we make, because we don't see the big picture. There is millions of us who are in traditional African religions right here in North America. But Africa didn't have, and especially West Africa, the tradition of building buildings as temple because they saw the universe as the temple. And so that's why we didn't build buildings as temple. In Kemet, because we were stranded in an ecology that was fundamentally desert, that we created these buildings to simulate an ecology that was green. Notice that all the pillars of the buildings is plants and trees. So we were trying to simulate an ecology that we came out of so that we could retain the memory of that relationship. And so here we are, we may have to, what's the Nigerian brother who wrote a piece on Yoruba history, he said one thing with African culture is not static. It adapts and changes out of necessity. So if we've got to start building buildings and temples, then we do that. If that's what is necessary to bring our people together. Because the culture always allows for that kind of expansion. But we've got to know that the greatest temple is the universe itself. You know? And that's why we didn't build temples. Why would I have to? When the tree is my friend, the water is my friend, the sky is my mother, my father, the earth is my mother, and God is my mother, the sky is my father. We had it all broken down, we understood the relationship. So there was no need to have a building. Everywhere I went was the house of the divine. Everywhere. Okay? Everything that lived there, bugs, plants, animals, humans, was sacred. None should be destroyed except out of necessity. But we had a culture where they've created a building and said, if you're not part of this little building complex, you're the enemy. And we have to break past that. We have to break past those walls. They're all artificial. You know? As a matter of fact, and then I'll end the question with this. God said, God always saying. There's a story that I was talking about first in Togo about two brothers that's sitting out there on the log and they're laughing. Because the white folks is trying to subscribe them all to build this building, this cathedral. And they're laughing. And the white folks say, see so lazy, you're trying to get them to build a house of God, and they're sitting over there on the log laughing. And the brother's saying, how foolish they are to think they can build a building big enough to hold God. You know? Think that sounds simple. It's not simple at all. So we need, and one other thing I want to add to, which I agree we need, festivals that we celebrate. Juneteenth, we need to make it that. All right? Emancipation days. We got Emancipation Day throughout the Caribbean. We have the Emancipation Day here. We should celebrate them. Those are things that bind you. We should have the African New Year. The oldest one we know is in Ethiopia, and I think it's the 11th of September. About 11th of September. But we should celebrate that African New Year every year. If we can get at least 5 to 6 collective holidays that the African world is celebrating at the same time, that would be a glue that nobody could undo. And some of us are starting to write down what they should be in the pamphlet this year. And we're going to put that out there like that. And I think that would solve a lot of the problem. Because in Africa, we had the same diversity and it didn't divide us. The Igbo did their thing the Igbo way in the sacred forest. The Yoruba did their thing the Yoruba way in the sacred temple. The Congolese did their thing, and they were not divided. You think tribalism is why we got into this. That's bull. That's his description of his murdering rampage. We were just minding our business, planting our corn, loving our women and children, fishing, and carrying on our stuff. And so, what we've got to understand is that we've got to be clear that we are defining ourselves. Our ability to define your reality and have other people accept your definition of yourself as if it was their own. Now, one brother.
Next question.
I'm going to make my answer short. Yes, sir.
From the minute you started, you keep using the word ecology.
Yes, sir.
So you're talking about whatever environment you find yourself in,
That's a good
the
question.
science of what we are, we use that to navigate that ecology?
Yes, sir. So I'm talking about the entire environment, the earth,
Right.
what grows in it, and the social ecology. And we have to master all of that. That's like being in the ocean. How do we get through that? Now, if we're in the desert, then that's one ecology. And we have to create certain science to navigate and master that. But we're in urban America.
Right.
This is a whole nother kind of ecology. How do we master this ecology? First, you have to learn it. You got to study it. You got to understand it. And then we can begin to create using our science to master it. Simple. Everybody requires, everybody in here today, you need food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security. Before you need anything else, that's why you do what you do. You got to provide some food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security. To do that in urban America, you got to control economic, politics, and culture where you live. Malcolm called that white nationalism. To do that successfully, you got to get control of land, labor, and resources where you live. Those 10 things is essential to be spiritually alive. If you separate your spirituality from your political reality, you've lost your way. If you separate your spirituality from your personal reality, you have lost your way. Like somebody told me in the land, if you got somebody who's angry with you, don't let them fix you no food.
That's right.
That's right. They may mean you all the good in the world, but that anger will come out in that food, and that's going to harm you. So, little laws like that, but that's a major law. Same thing with making love to people. People, oh, you fight and then you make up. No, that's the wrong time. That ain't the right time. To be putting that energy into one another's bodies. Go and meditate together. Go and sit and resolve the contradiction. And then reward yourself after coming up with the resolution. Then you're going to have a healthy session. You may have to close the windows and the doors. Then don't get loud.
Next question right here.
At the beginning, you mentioned, I think you said, with the Book of the Dead, where the explanations or pyramid text, where the explanations were like basically quantum physics. I found it to be very interesting.
Yeah, if you read it, preacher say that we are talking about what the whites are calling science. He knew that when he took it from us. Then he got us over here playing with some ritualistic religious jigaboo. While he got our sacred science over there in the university trying to break it down. He's just beginning to understand our stuff. Every now and then you see him come up with a new thing. But he had to get to outer space. Didn't it take a black woman working in mathematics? When we had to get a cell phone, didn't it take a black man creating it? When we had to get the internet, didn't it take a black man to create it? When it had to get the email, didn't it? See, if you know all the pieces your mind has put together, you realize he didn't put together nothing. He just controlled it all because he got the knowledge. Even to the touch-tone phone, a black woman. The thing they use now, the poker, FICA, or something, to fight cataract, a black woman. Hardly at the GPS, a black woman. You gotta understand, he's played us out of pocket. Still playing us out of pocket. And making us think it's him. It's a sleight of hand. While he's making you not see yourself. You know? So that's a good book to get. Any good English translation of the coffin text, there's really, we think of the book of Bell all the time, there's the coffin text, the pyramid text, the book of Gates. These are awesome, and this is just four of the major ones that's significant to study and read.